Yamsketch.
Hey everyone, how's it going? In this lesson, I wanted to take a look at drawing something. Guess what it is? No, you're wrong, it's noses. So I want to take a look at how to draw the nose, how to stylize the nose, how to get some structure and anatomy in there without like going crazy looking through anatomy books and stuff. Just how to get a basic start and then stylize it in all these different ways so you can draw, comics, animation, or whatever you were doing, illustration, and so on. So first of all, here's some real nose from the internet of different genders, races, and so on. And so what we want to see here is kind of like, what do these all have in common? And then how can we start to build this stuff up? So I have a few tips and tricks here that actually make it a little bit easier to study this stuff. And I'm going to include some stuff linked below that's going to help you out with this. But basically, there's a couple of easy ways to sort of break down the nose. One of them is like this way, using spheres and ovals and stuff to kind of trick yourself into thinking in volumes. And that's using this technique. And I have a little sphere brush that I made for you guys that you can use to do that. I'll show you how that works. And the second one is what I call the necktie approach, where you start with a shape that's like a necktie or even like an upside down casket, if you like. And you start with that to get the basic outline, and then you use that to break it into planes, which you can then use for shadows and shading and stuff. It's really cool. So I'm going to show you both of those techniques, and let's get started. So first of all, the necktie. That is kind of the basic shape for the nose, right? If you look at it front on, what you'll see is that there's basically a necktie shaped hole cut into our heads in the skull. And that's where the bone comes out of, and then it stops, and then you have cartilage that fills it up and makes the nose, right? So getting that base shape is pretty good, because then you know that like what you're building on top of that is going to be right. But you have to keep in mind that the nose is actually pretty complex. It pops out of your head. So there's a lot of dimension to it. There's a lot of depth. So you don't want to forget that this thing is actually 3D. So when you draw like a circle on here, remember this is really more like a sphere. And if I was going to light it, you have to kind of think about this as a 3D shape in your mind. And that's going to be the difference between something that looks really good later when you start to build up these shapes in depth, and something that just kind of looks like, wah, wah, I drew a shape, right? So the reason I put the top on this tie is because the nose is connected to the rest of your face, and one of the important places is it's connected to your brows, where you have your eyebrows, of course, but also where you have your eye sockets coming out. And so if you know how all that works together, then it actually becomes easier to bring it all together and make it look right. So you don't want to just draw the nose thinking about only the nose. After all, it's in the middle of your face. It is connected to the rest of your face, and actually it's connected to your mouth too. So we're going to take a look at how the nose plays together with the rest of these shapes on your face so that you can create something that actually feels like it belongs. And there's some pretty cool measurements that sort of seem to hold true for basically everyone about kind of the size of your mouth versus the size of your nostrils and all that stuff. So if you get that stuff right, then you can start to know like, where do I put cheeks? Where do I put the jaw and the chin? And then it also helps you with structure, like where can I put shadows and stuff like that. So really quickly, you can start to build this stuff up if you get the nose right. And so the nose is kind of like, I don't know, it ties the room together, so to speak, the room of your face. So, okay. So what we do here is we think about the width at the most important places of your nose. That's how I'm drawing this tie. So it's not just random. If I was going to look at a person here, what I want to do is I want to think about the widest part of their nose. I want to think about the most narrow part of their nose, which actually might be up here. These aren't the best pictures, actually. This guy's the best because we've got the bridge of his nose a bit. So we want to think about the narrowest part, and that's here, right? Here. And then we want to think about the kind of the widest part, and that's where the nostrils are. And then we also want to think about the brow here, but you can see that's not in this picture, so I'm going to invent it. But so we have this line here, and this line here. So if you keep that in mind, then when you draw the shape, if you're looking at someone, then you can just kind of copy that, right? So make sure that when you're staring at someone, well, don't creep them out by staring at them. That's one thing. But then when you're looking at their nose and trying to decide how to draw it, look at this, and this measurement and see how wide are they compared to each other. So is this one twice as big as this one, as wide? Is this one 1.5 times as wide as this one? And so on. So you just kind of think about it in terms of like a rough, how is this compared to that kind of thing? And then you draw it. So for instance, if I see that a guy's got super huge wide nostrils, okay, then I know this is going to be really big compared to this, which might be a little bit smaller, right? And then is his brow bigger than where it gets narrow? Like kind of where the nose comes in, right? Is it bigger than that, or is it kind of the same size as that before his eyebrows start, right? If it's like if it's a woman and I'm looking at her nose and she's got like a beautiful dainty nose, then I'm thinking like, okay, she's got this little dainty nose. And then does this come in as much, or are they almost the same size? And then the brow again, where do the eyelashes start? So, I'm sorry, where do the eyebrows start? So that's a great way to kind of start to think about this. Once you have those 3 measurements, you just draw a tie. So draw from there to there, draw from there to there. And then this last part, is just from that widest part of their nose down to where the nostrils sort of ended. So if you could see here, like where this part tucks in, I'm drawing on these pictures over here. So where this part tucks in under the nose, that's where you can put this point. So if theirs goes really low and they have long, tall nostrils, that happens. And you put that down there. If it's a really narrow area, then you just put that down there, and their nostrils will be back like this. You won't see them as much. And then you just draw that. Boom, you got your tie. Okay, and now you can get the basic feel for that nose. So if you just look at these measurements and you compare them to each other, the wideness there, and then the how far to the bottom of the nose down at this part, you can really easily create this basic shape. And from this basic shape, you're going to be able to construct the nose. Okay? So if you want to play with that, I've made a little brush for you guys that basically gives you that little base. And if you pull it in the direction that you want, it's going to draw in that direction. So if I want a nose that's facing this way, it'll face that way, and so on. And if you want to change the size, just change the size and draw the nose at the size that you like. Okay? So if we draw with this brush, oh, by the way, if you change the width here, you can get thinner noses and so on, right? Okay. So if I draw with this brush, and then I grab just sort of a normal brush, again, right now, I'm probably just going to use Kyle brush because I love Kyle brush. But the brushes we make on the show and that custom brushes that I make, I'm putting out to you guys too. So you can always check below in the links for that kind of stuff. All right, so now that I have the basic things, this is where my brows are. So that would be where like the furrow in my brow would go if I was angry, right? Like that. And then this is where my eyebrows are going to start, right? Over here. Okay. Okay. And then my eyes are going to be in here somewhere. I'm not going to worry about sizing them yet. I'm going to focus on the nose. So here's the important thing. It's a 3D shape. So this is more like a pyramid than a casket, right? Like it comes up to a certain point, and then you have the top of your nose where it's going to catch most of the light and stuff like that. Okay. So if I just draw a circle here, that's what I usually do. Then I know that this is kind of like the top of the nose, and this is going to catch light. So if the light's coming from over here, then this is going to be the brightest, and then darker and darker and darker, and so on like that, right? Okay. So, and then I know that I'm going to need nostrils, and that's what these points are for. These points are kind of those, the edge of those nostrils. So if you just sort of create more of a nostril-y shape, which is a lot of people have, there's a huge variety in nostrils. So you just have to look, but it's going to be more rounded. Of course, some people have really big ones. Some people have really wide ones. Some people have really small ones. Sometimes they're sharp. Sometimes they're more angular. You just got to look. But for the most part, draw something nostril-ish, which is kind of like these brackets. And then down on the bottom where the nose kind of goes back into the mouth area, it's going to be a variety of shapes. It might be shaped like that. It might be like kind of like a double, like a butt nose. You know how some people have butt chins and some people have kind of like butt noses? That's because, the two halves kind of connect here, and you have muscles that wrap around like that. And so it creates that shape, right? So, but But don't worry about that. Just think about the shape that you're looking at if you're copying from someone. And if you're making a character, just whatever you want. So it might be shaped like that, or it might just be kind of like a soft, almost like a flat kind of area. Just look at your reference for that. In this case, you can kind of see that here. Like this guy's got like a nice soft arcing one. This guy's much more angular here, so he's kind of flat on the bottom. You can see. This woman's got a very smooth and then kind of small area here. So if you can imagine the other side, this is probably actually quite small for her nostrils, like this, right? So you just have to look. This one's a little bit more pinched and then flat down there. So you just have to look at whoever you're. This is a great one, nice and flat here. Okay, and then so you have the bottom, you have the sides, and then remember you have nostrils. So just come in like that and draw that shape. You don't have to go all the way around, and nostrils are not just big blots, right? They are where the skin folds into the nostril, and then in there it just gets darker and darker and darker, and then that would just become lighter and lighter and lighter as you leave the nose and it gets into light, right? So it's not like this shape, like a big black hole into space. It's actually a tuck, and then it's darkest in there, and then it's slowly fading out, and that's because the skin is like wrapping under. So just keep that in mind when you're drawing this stuff, that it's like folds in skin that are creating all these shadows. And on the edge of the nostril too, you can see it's a fold in the skin that's creating a shadow. So that's going to slowly go off like that, right? So some people have really sharp, we're back on this guy here. So some people have really sharp nostrils that sort of cleft in here and then, have a sharp shadow going down to the muscles in their mouth. And some people are very soft. My rule of thumb when drawing noses is that less is more, especially if you're drawing women. Do not overdraw a nose because it just looks hideous. And one of the things you'll notice that I'm not doing is like, it's a nose, let's draw this giant line down here. I'm starting with the structure here, which is the heaviest. This line, usually you don't even need to draw, honestly. You can kind of let shadows do that work. But anyway, so taking a look at shadows, you have the base of the skull here where the nose is starting, but it comes up again like a pyramid or like a building. It comes up and then there's like a roof on top. There's the top part. It's 3D shape, not just flat, right? So you have to think about that. So again, this changes per person. So just look at your reference. You can see up here, some people have a softer roof where it's just almost like this nice round thing. Again, here's a pretty angular one where it's coming up and it's pretty sharp. You can see a bunch of different variations here where you can kind of tell by when there's a highlight, like a white line there. It's like, or here, it's pretty crisp, so you can kind of find that line, right? Like even this soft one, I can find the basic line pretty easily. So just find the line, draw that down into your the little plateauing area on the top of the nose here. And then that's pretty easy. You just look at the light. If the light's coming from here, that means the shadow's on the other side, and then you can just draw that shadow in, and boom, there you go. There's a nose. There's no reason to draw all this in, because you don't need to crowd it with detail. Saying enough just to suggest that the form is there is better than drawing it all out, because they're not flat shapes, so they're not all outlined, right? Like they don't all have these big outlines. That just kind of makes stuff funky when you draw a nose like that, right? It's ugly. I mean, you might have an animated character where you're caricaturing them, and so you want that, but you want to make that as a choice, not just because. Okay, so if I do that, right, I could even come back in and erase this back out, and I don't even have to, I can just start to see this form. So I can think about the brows here too. They tuck in. So this line here, the middle line in our little line thing, usually, and again, this changes per person. These pictures aren't great because they're not showing the brow, but usually this tucks in. So this is going, down into the face, which means that this tends to go into shadow, right? But it's, some people are very soft here, and then some people is very pronounced where they have a very heavy brow. So again, you just need to look at your reference. But if I just do a soft shadow there, put these brows into a soft shadow, and then I kind of come down here, and I think, again, my light is, if it was coming from here, the shadow's on this side, and then Also, of course, there needs to be a shadow on this side of this. So what's really nice about this circle here is that if I use it as a guide for the nostrils, I can just kind of start with the nostrils and wrap around, use that circle as my guide here and wrap around the other side. And I know that this down here is probably where a lot of that shadow is going to get caught. Because this is down here too, this is turning in to the face, right? This is tucking under and then connecting to your mouth. So all this skin is turning over, which means that eventually it's going to be in shadow. So if you use these little guides and tricks like that, what it does is it really just helps you locate. It helps you locate where to place shadows and where planes break and where things change and turn. So that's really the point of using these little techniques. They're not because it actually happens in real life. It's because we need to simplify things that happen in real life to make it easier to understand and draw them, especially when you're drawing from imagination, like creativity, because we're just drawing this from the front. But we want to use a technique where we can draw it from anywhere, from any angle, from these side angles and all this stuff. And you can do that because this is simple enough. So remember, this is the base where it tucks in. So that would be here. This is the widest part, which is going to be those nostrils. So that's here. This is the most narrow part, which is going to be where the nose sort of pinches together up top. And then this one, unfortunately, isn't on this drawing, but it's where the brows kind of are. So that would be up here. And you can see, even though I'm drawing this at an angle now, it's because I'm following a guide. It's not any harder. It's the same stuff. It's pretty easy. And then now that I have this guide, the only thing that's different is instead of putting my circle dead center, because this was looking from the front, I can put it dead center. I have to think about this circle more as a ball or a sphere, and I have to place it in space where it should be because it's on top, right? It's to the top of your nose. For this one, you can see the ball's right there. Right? It's not in the middle because that would be a flat nose. This person's is right here. So I can draw that sphere or that circle that I'm imagining as a sphere here. And I can do the same thing with the nostrils. Instead of, just drawing them like this, like from the front, I can just think about them more from the side. That one's going to be a little bit bigger and closer to us. This one's going to be, we don't see as much. Boom. And there you go. So here's my nostril here, and then the top of my nose. And then my brow, and then the same thing. There's a ridge there. It's easy in these photos because I can see the ridge because of this specular highlight or the little white light. That was a nerd thing. Specular highlight. This little shiny ridge up here. I can see that where that is, and so I know that this is going to fall into shadow, right? If the light was coming from here, and then I can draw from imagination in any angle that I want. So that's the purpose of techniques like this. Okay, and that would fall into shadow a little bit too, and then this one down here would, and so on, right? So let's do that over here. Let's draw that with one of these. So you can see I've kind of tilted this brush, and I can do the same thing with this. So again, that's the brow, that's where it's narrow, this is where the nostrils are, and then this is where it tucks in. And then all I have to do is, instead of putting the ball in the middle, let's say that the ball's over here because it's at a pretty good angle. I mean, it might even be over here, depending on their nose. So let's put the ball there. And again, some people have like a huge bulbous nose. Some people have a very like pointy nose. You just have to look at either your character or your reference, right? And then again, like I need the nostril. I know there's a nostril there and there. So I just got to draw a nostril shape. So let's draw one we like that. And like that. Okay, and then one goes over there. Maybe that's going to get covered, but we're still going to draw it. And then we know that the nose tucks in here. So that goes there. And then because there's a lot of space here, probably these nostrils are going to kind of be a little bit taller. Like there's a tall nostril and there's one, right? Okay. And then the ridge where that light would pick up, it might look like that. It might be straight. Some people scoop. Some people have like a bridge. This shape changes quite a lot. That's like a Roman nose or something. Some people swoop in and have like a very kind of like weak bridge to their nose. This bridge part is actually what gives people tons of character. So this is a really cool one to look at. Everyone's got a unique shape. There's basically no rules. You saw I draw this really bulbous one right here. Some people look like that, like a boxer or something. You just have to look at people's stuff, I mean their face, and just go with what you see, you know? So if I was going to draw that on this one, the bridge is the part right here. So some people have, you know, just a really straight bridge. Some people have a very angular bridge. If we're looking at it right from the front, you know, some people flare out, some people flare in. You just have to look at it. And again, if you look at your reference, you can see all sorts of different noses here. Some that flare, you know, out as they go down, some that have a little kind of bulbous area, some that bridge out, like this one's got a classic like bump in the bridge, like that. So you just have to look at it. But there is quite a lot of variety. This one sort of pinches down here and then comes up softly. So you just look at who you're looking at and then think about it and then draw. So if I'm going to do that with this one, let's just do like a nice soft bridge like to here and then sort of just roll in. That's kind of a bumpy. Let's do a little bit of a softer nose there. Bridge go up there. Okay, and then the other side of the bridge is here because remember it's a 3D part. So this is like the roof on this part, and then it has like the part falling away at an angle, like a you know, like a shed roof or something with a, you know, like a triangle top roof. Okay, so here's my brows. They don't have to be furrowed, but just to remind myself that there's muscles here, like one here and one there. And then here's where the light falls away, so I can kind of add my shadow here. And then here's where my nostril comes around. So I can kind of think about how this is going to have like a dark shadow there where it tucks in. And the shadow from this, that's going to connect up, right? Okay. And then, of course, this bulb is like a sphere or a ball. So it's going to have like the part where the light hits. And then it's going to go into shadow too, right? That's also going to go into shadow. And then this whole half back here is cast in shadow. So of course that's all going to fall into shadow. But then the nostril, which is, you know, underneath, is going to be even darker. So then some of this stuff underneath, where it completely turns away from the light, will be even darker. So, you know, that's a good tip. If something is like on the other side, it's all going to be in shadow, but it's just a light shadow, and then you know, the part that really falls away is the even darker part. So this is under the nose, so that's where the mouth starts, and you're going to have lips and stuff like that. That's another tutorial. The mouth, that's an important one too. But so let's just do that quickly. There you go. And then you know, your lips and your chin and all that. And then of course you're going to have your eyes coming back here, and the eye sockets, and all that, and then the brow, of course. So you can see that just by using that, and the cheek, and so on. But you can see that by using this basic tie shape, we've actually, you know, we can really actually approach this from any angle. We can find any angle that we want to this nose. So I really recommend this tie shape one. It's a really easy thing to do to start practicing drawing noses. And then you just think of the angle you want, and you put the ball of the nose there. And these are easy things to measure. So this is good for life drawing. If you're looking at people and drawing them in the park or at a bar or something, you can actually look at someone and really quickly pick out 3 measurements. People ask me that too, like, how do you draw someone because they're always moving? What you do is you take what you know in your head, and then you do quick measurements with a technique like this that you can get in a few seconds before they move. You get a few of their key measurements, nail them, and then honestly you don't really have to stare at them anymore because you know what their measurements are, and so you can just draw based on what you already know about anatomy. That's the trick to drawing people in real life, where they, you know, yeah, they do move around. So you gotta know what they look like even when you're not looking at them. So, but anyway, so that's a great technique for drawing noses. I hope that was helpful for you guys. I'm going to link some nose drawing brushes. I'm going to link this little tie brush down in the description, so you can get at that and kind of practice with that if that's useful for you guys. And if you have any questions, comments, or otherwise, put them down below. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. See you next time.
Yamsketch.